Deep in the heart of the Galactic Council's massive data vaults, buried under millions of files about trade routes and peace treaties, there are strange reports that most officials try to ignore. These files talk about something the aliens call humanity's ghost ship. The name alone sends shivers through experienced military commanders, though they would never admit it publicly. The ship is called the UES Prometheus, and according to these scattered reports, it can do things that should be impossible. Witnesses claim it can disappear completely from sensors, only to reappear right behind enemy fleets. Some say it can pass through solid metal like it's made of air. Others swear they've seen it fire weapons that bend space itself. But here's the thing about these reports. They're all from battles where the aliens lost badly, and the survivors were often half crazy with fear. Most alien species laugh off these stories. They call them human lies, propaganda designed to make their enemies scared. After all, humans are known for their wild imagination and their love of impossible stories. The Zephyrian Empire's military academy even uses these reports as examples of enemy psychological warfare in their textbooks. Students learn to spot obvious fabrications by studying the Prometheus files. Admiral Vextar of the mighty Hegemony Fleet is one of these skeptics. He's a veteran of 43 successful campaigns, and he's never seen a human weapon that impressed him. To him, humans are just another primitive species that got lucky enough to stumble into space travel. Their ships are crude, their weapons are basic, and their tactics are predictable. The idea that they could build something that defies the laws of physics is laughable. Right now, Vextar is preparing for what he believes will be his easiest victory yet. His target is New Haven, the last human colony world still putting up any real resistance. Intelligence reports show it's defended by a small fleet led by someone called Commander Park Hyun. The human commander has maybe 12 ships under his command, all of them outdated and outgunned. Vextar's armada is a completely different story. 200 of the Hegemony's finest warships hang in formation, their weapons charged and ready. Each ship carries enough firepower to level a city. Together, they represent the accumulated military might of a dozen conquered worlds. The Admiral's flagship alone masses more than Park Hyun's entire fleet combined. The battle plan is simple and brutal. Vextar will jump his fleet into the New Haven system, demand surrender, and when the humans inevitably refuse, he'll demonstrate why resistance is pointless. A few targeted strikes should be enough to break their spirits. The survivors will be relocated to labor camps. A New Haven will become another Hegemony mining world. As Vextar reviews the tactical displays, he can't help but smile. The humans have fought bravely, he'll give them that. But courage means nothing against overwhelming firepower. Soon their rebellion will be nothing but another entry in the history books, and those ridiculous ghost ship stories will finally be forgotten. What the Admiral doesn't know is that somewhere in the vast emptiness between stars something is watching, something that exists in the spaces between dimensions, crewed by volunteers who have already accepted their death. The myth is about to become terrifyingly real. The jump into the New Haven system goes exactly as Admiral Vextar expected. His 200 warships drop out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their massive hulls blotting out the stars. The sensor operators immediately begin scanning for targets, and what they find makes several of them chuckle with dark amusement. 12 ships. That's all Commander Park Hyun has managed to scrape together for humanity's last stand. The human. Vessels look pitiful compared to the Hegemony armada, outdated cruisers and patched-up destroyers that probably should have been scrapped decades ago. Some of them are literally held together with external repair plating. It's almost insulting that the humans think this ragtag collection could pose any threat. Vextar opens a communication channel, fully expecting Park Hyun to surrender immediately, when he sees the overwhelming odds. But instead of the terrified plea for mercy he anticipates, the human commander's response is calm and steady. Park Hyun simply says, "We're ready when you are, Admiral. Let's finish this." The arrogance infuriates Vextar. He gives the order to open fire and his fleet unleashes a devastating barrage. Plasma beams and missile volleys streak across space toward the tiny human formation. The first salvo alone carries enough destructive power to vaporize a small moon. This should be over in seconds. But then, something impossible happens. Right. In the middle of the opening exchange, space itself begins to act strangely. The area near the human ship starts to shimmer and bend, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Sensors throughout the hegemony fleet begin screaming warnings about massive gravitational distortions and energy readings that don't make sense. Some of the equipment actually overloads and shuts down completely. The shimmer grows stronger, and reality seems to fold in on itself. It's as if someone is tearing a hole in the universe, creating a doorway to somewhere that shouldn't exist. The distortion expands, becoming a ripple that spreads outward like rings on a pond. But this pond is made of space and time itself. Then, from the heart of this impossible phenomenon, something begins to emerge. At first, it's just a shadow, a dark outline against the twisted space. But as more of it pushes through from whatever dimension it's been hiding in, the true scale becomes horrifyingly clear. This isn't just another human ship. This is something that dwarfs even Vextar's massive flagship. The thing that's materializing is easily 3 times the size of the largest hegemony dreadnought. As the dimensional rift seals behind it, the newcomer becomes fully visible, and the sight leaves the entire alien fleet stunned into silence. The hull is scarred and pitted from battles that must have taken place across impossible distances. Strange symbols and markings cover its surface, not painted on, but actually carved into the metal by weapons that exist beyond normal understanding. But it's the weapon ports that truly terrify the watching aliens. They glow with an energy that makes nearby stars look dim by comparison. The light has a quality that hurts to look at directly, as if it's not quite from this dimension. Power readings from the ship are so high that several hegemony sensor operators assume their equipment is malfunctioning. The UES Prometheus has arrived, and with it, everything Admiral Vextar thought he knew about warfare is about to change forever. Across the hegemony fleet, science officers are staring at their instruments in complete disbelief. The readings coming from the human ship don't just break the rules of physics, they shatter them completely. Dr. Zaltek, the fleet's chief scientist, has spent his entire career studying advanced propulsion systems, but what he's seeing now makes no sense at all. The ship's engines aren't burning fuel or creating thrust in any recognizable way. Instead, they're somehow folding space itself around the vessel, creating bubbles of compressed reality that allow it to move without actually moving. It's like watching someone step from one room to another by making the rooms switch places, instead of walking through the door. The energy requirements for such technology should be impossible to generate, yet the human ship is doing it as easily as breathing. But that's just the beginning of the impossibilities. The Prometheus's hull isn't made of any metal or composite that appears in any galactic database. Detailed scans reveal that the armor plating exists in multiple dimensions at the same time. When weapons fire hits it, the impacts are somehow spread across several layers of reality, making the damage almost negligible. It's as if the ship is only partially present in normal space, with the rest of it hidden in dimensions that the hegemony's best scientists didn't even know existed. Lieutenant Commander Kim Soo stands on the bridge of his vessel, watching the tactical displays with growing horror. As a combat engineer, he's seen every type of weapon system in the known galaxy. He knows how plasma cannons work, understands the mechanics of particle beams, and can calculate the yield of antimatter warheads in his sleep. But what the Prometheus is preparing to fire defies everything he thought he knew about warfare. The human ship's weapon ports are charging with something that sensors can barely detect. The energy signatures are unlike anything in any military manual. As Kim Soo watches, the Prometheus fires its first shot and his instruments immediately go crazy, trying to analyze what just happened. The weapon doesn't launch a projectile or emit a beam. Instead, it creates what can only be described as a tiny black hole, a concentrated gravitational singularity that warps space around it. The miniature black hole streaks toward a hegemony cruiser, and when it makes contact, the enemy ship doesn't explode or burn. It simply collapses in on itself, crushed by forces that shouldn't exist outside the core of a dying star. The entire vessel is compressed into a point smaller than a marble before the artificial singularity dissipates, leaving nothing behind but empty space and shocked silence. Admiral Vextar feels something he hasn't experienced in decades of warfare: genuine fear. As more impossible weapons fire from the Prometheus, each one demonstrating technology that should take centuries to develop, a terrible realization begins to dawn on him. Humanity hasn't been losing this war because they're weak or primitive. They've been losing because they chose to appear weak while secretly developing weapons that exist beyond the boundaries of conventional science. For decades, humans have been fighting with outdated ships and basic weapons, letting the galaxy believe they were just another primitive species, stumbling through space. But all that time, their best minds were working on projects that pushed the very limits of what's possible. They've been playing a game so advanced that their enemies didn't even realize a game was being played. The ghost ship was never a myth. It was a warning that nobody was smart enough to understand. What happens next isn't really a battle. It's more like watching a master artist create a deadly masterpiece. The Prometheus doesn't charge into combat like a normal warship. Instead, it begins to dance through space with a grace that seems impossible for something so massive. Every movement is calculated, every position carefully chosen, as if the ship's captain can see the entire battlefield from some higher dimension. The first real attack comes without warning. The Prometheus fires what looks like ordinary torpedoes toward a group of hegemony destroyers. The enemy ships immediately raise their shields, massive energy barriers that have protected them through countless battles. These shields can stop anything from plasma blasts to antimatter missiles. They should be impenetrable, but the human torpedoes don't even slow down when they hit the shields. They pass right through them like the barriers don't exist at all. The weapons phase shift into a different dimension just long enough to bypass the defenses, then snap back into normal space once they're inside the enemy hulls. The explosions that follow tear the destroyers apart from within, their own armor becoming a trap that contains the devastating blasts. Captain Mortek watches in horror as his entire squadron vanishes in a series of internal explosions. He's been commanding warships for 30 years, and he's never seen weapons that can simply ignore shields. His tactical officer is frantically trying to recalibrate their defenses, but how do you defend against something that attacks from inside? Your own ship? The gravitational cannons are even more terrifying. When the Prometheus targets a cluster of heavy cruisers, it doesn't fire traditional weapons at all. Instead, it creates miniature black holes that streak across the battlefield like dark lightning. These artificial singularities don't just destroy their targets, they consume them completely. Entire warships are crushed down to the size of marbles before disappearing into the hungry void of collapsed space. Admiral Vextar tries to coordinate a counterattack, but his fleet is falling apart faster than he can give orders. The Prometheus moves through his carefully planned formations like a shark through a school of fish. Every time his ships try to surround it, the human vessel simply phases into dimensional fold space and reappears somewhere else entirely. It's fighting a three-dimensional battle, while his forces are stuck thinking in only 2 dimensions. The worst part is how effortless it all looks. The Prometheus isn't straining or pushing its systems to their limits. Its weapons fire with the steady rhythm of a heartbeat, each shot precisely placed to cause maximum devastation. The ship's movement through space is smooth and controlled, never wasting energy or exposing itself to unnecessary risk. This isn't desperation or luck. This is complete mastery of warfare at a level the hegemony has never encountered. Within minutes, Vextar's proud armada of 200 warships is reduced to scattered debris and fleeing survivors. The few vessels, still capable of movement, are desperately trying to escape to hyperspace, their crews abandoning all pretense of military discipline in their panic to get away from the impossible human weapon. The Prometheus doesn't pursue the fleeing ships. It simply hovers in the center of the battlefield, surrounded by the wreckage of what was once the hegemony's most powerful fleet. Its weapon ports still glow with that otherworldly energy, ready to unleash more destruction if needed. But the message is already clear. Humanity's ghost ship isn't a myth anymore. It's a reality that has just changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Inside the Prometheus, the atmosphere is nothing like what you'd expect on a victorious warship. There's no cheering, no celebration, no sense of triumph. Instead, a heavy silence fills the corridors, as Captain Li Jin walks through his ship, checking on his crew. The victory outside feels hollow when you know the true cost of achieving. Li Jin stops at a medical station where navigator Han Sol is receiving treatment. Han Sol's hands are shaking slightly as he reviews star charts, and there are dark circles under his eyes that weren't there a week ago. The dimensional fold drives that make the Prometheus so deadly are slowly killing everyone aboard. Each time they phase through space, the exotic radiation burns through their cells like acid, breaking down their DNA strand by strand. "How are you holding up?" Li Jin asks quietly, though he already knows the answer. Han Sol has been with him since the beginning of this mission, and watching his friend deteriorate day by day is one of the hardest parts of command. "I can still do my job, Captain," Han Sol replies with a weak smile. "The navigation systems are holding steady, and I've plotted our next fold space jump. We should be able to make at least 3 more dimensional shifts before—" He doesn't finish the sentence. They both know what comes next. In the engineering section, Chief Engineer Choi Min is working frantically to keep the quantum weapons systems stable. Her once steady hands now tremble as she adjusts the delicate controls, and her breathing is labored from the radiation damage to her lungs. The quantum energy that powers their impossible weapons is literally tearing apart her molecular structure. But she continues working because the mission isn't over yet. The gravitational cannons are operating at 93% efficiency, she reports when Li Jin arrives. "I can probably squeeze out 2 more full-power salvos before the containment fields start breaking down." She pauses, coughing up blood into a tissue. "After that, we'll need to rely on the dimensional torpedoes." Every person on this ship volunteered for this mission knowing they would never see Earth again. They knew the technology that made the Prometheus so powerful would kill them slowly and painfully. But they also knew that humanity's survival depended on someone being willing to make this sacrifice. When the call went out for volunteers, thousands of people applied. The crew selection process was heartbreaking, choosing who would live and who would die for their species. Li Jin remembers the day he said goodbye to his family. His daughter was only 8 years old, and she didn't understand why Daddy had to go away forever. His wife understood, though. She held him tight and whispered, "Bring them home, Jin. Bring all of humanity home." The weight of that promise has carried him through every dark moment of this mission. The medical officer approaches with the daily health reports, and the numbers are getting worse. Cellular breakdown is accelerating across the entire crew. They have perhaps weeks left, maybe less if they need to use the fold drive again. But Li Jin doesn't feel sorry for himself or his crew. They knew this was the price when they signed up. Looking around at his dying crew, Li Jin feels a fierce pride mixed with deep sadness. These people are heroes in the truest sense. They're giving their lives not for glory or recognition, but simply because it's the right thing to do. They're proving that humanity's greatest weapon isn't advanced technology or impossible physics. It's the willingness of ordinary people to sacrifice everything for those they love. Captain Li Jin stands in the communication center of the Prometheus, looking tired but determined. His reflection in the dark screen shows a man who has aged, years in just weeks, but his eyes still burn with purpose. Communications Officer Park Yu has spent the last hour setting up the most important broadcast in human history. Every relay station, every communications satellite, every quantum transmitter in the galaxy will carry this message. "Are we ready?" Li Jin asks. Park Yu nods, her fingers dancing over controls that most alien species don't even know exist. The Prometheus has communication technology that can punch through jamming attempts and reach every corner of civilized space simultaneously. Within minutes, this message will be playing in the council chambers of the Galactic Senate, the War, rooms of military commanders, and the private offices of planetary governors. Li Jin takes a deep breath and begins to speak. His voice is calm and steady, but there's an underlying steel that makes every word feel like a promise and a warning at the same time. "My name is Captain Li Jin of the UES Prometheus. By now, word of what happened at New Haven has reached your leaders. You've seen the reports of impossible weapons and ships that shouldn't exist. Some of you probably think this was a lucky shot, a one-time surprise that won't happen again. You're wrong. The transmission continues, and Li Jin's image appears on screens across thousands of worlds. In the hegemony capital, emergency sessions are being called. On distant mining colonies, workers stop what they're doing to listen. In the halls of the Galactic Council, representatives whisper nervously to each other as they realize the implications of what they're hearing. The Prometheus is not alone, Li Jin continues. Humanity has built 13 vessels like her, each one crewed by volunteers who knew they would never return home. We didn't want this war, but since you brought it to us, we're going to finish it on our terms. 12 of our ghost ships remain hidden in dimensional fold space, positioned near your most important worlds. You can't detect them, you can't track them, and you can't destroy them with conventional weapons. Park Yu monitors the communication channels as panic spreads across alien networks. Military commanders are frantically scanning their sectors, looking for signs of hidden human ships. Defense fleets are being recalled to protect homeworlds. Trade routes are being abandoned as merchant vessels refuse to travel without massive escorts. The message continues with devastating simplicity. The rules are simple. Leave humanity alone, and our ships will remain in fold space. Attack any human world, harm any human civilian, and you'll discover that the destruction at New Haven was just a small demonstration of what we're capable of. We don't want to rule the galaxy, we don't want to conquer your worlds, and we don't want to destroy your civilizations. We just want to be left in peace. Li Jin pauses, letting the weight of his words sink in across the galaxy. Then he delivers the final, chilling statement that will be quoted in history books for centuries to come. To those who think they can find and destroy our remaining ships, remember this: the crews aboard them are already dying. They have nothing left to lose and everything to protect. They will not hesitate, they will not negotiate, and they will not show mercy to anyone who threatens human life. The ghost ships of Earth are real, and they're watching you. The transmission ends, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence as every species realizes that the balance of power has shifted forever. The hegemony's response to Captain Li Jin's message is swift and desperate. Within hours of the broadcast, Supreme Commander Thaxvan issues emergency orders that shake the very foundations of their military. Every available warship is being recalled from across the Empire. Garrison fleets abandon their posts, patrol. Squadrons leave their assigned sectors, and even ships under construction are pressed into service with skeleton crews. The numbers are staggering. Over 3,000 vessels converging on a single point in space. It's the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, representing the combined might of dozens of conquered worlds. Battle cruisers the size of cities fly alongside nimble destroyers and massive dreadnoughts that can crack planets. If this fleet can't destroy one human ship, then nothing can. The plan is brutally simple. Use overwhelming numbers to track the Prometheus's energy signature, surround it before it can escape to fold space, and hammer it with everything they have until nothing remains. Supreme Commander Thaxvan knows this is their only chance. If the Prometheus escapes now, the psychological impact will be devastating. Every species in the galaxy will know that humanity's ghost ships are truly untouchable. The hunt takes 3 days. Advanced sensor networks scan every star system within 50 light-years, looking for the unique energy patterns that the Prometheus generates. Finally, long-range scouts pick up the signature near a pulsar in the Kepler Nebula, a region of space so dangerous that most ships avoid it entirely, but the Prometheus isn't hiding there by choice. As the hegemony fleet closes in, it becomes clear that the human ship is in serious trouble. Its hull is scarred and blackened from the constant radiation bombardment of the pulsar. Several weapon ports are dark and lifeless. The ship's dimensional phase drives are flickering erratically, barely maintaining stability. Captain Li Jin is barely conscious in his command chair, his body ravaged by weeks of exposure to quantum radiation. Most of his crew is dead or dying, their DNA so damaged that even the ship's advanced medical systems can't help them. Navigator Han Sol collapsed at his station hours ago and hasn't moved since. Chief Engineer Choi Min is still at her post, but she's held upright only by her determination to keep the ship's systems running for a few more minutes. Weapons Officer Kim Jae struggles to focus on his displays as he reports the approaching enemy fleet. Captain, I'm reading 3,000 hostile contacts closing on our position. Main weapons are offline, dimensional torpedoes are depleted, and the fold space drive is completely fried. We're trapped. The hegemony fleet forms a perfect sphere around the dying Prometheus, their weapons trained on the human ship from every angle. There's no escape this time, no dimensional tricks, no impossible maneuvers, no miraculous technology to save them. Supreme Commander Thaxvan opens a communication channel, demanding surrender. But Captain Li Jin has one final card to play. With shaking hands, he reaches for a control panel that's been sealed with multiple security locks. The ship's final protocol, a weapon so terrible that it was never meant to be used except in the most desperate circumstances. All remaining crew, this is the captain, he whispers into the communication system. It's been an honor serving with you. Tell them what we did here. Tell them why we did it. His finger hovers over the activation switch that will phase shift the entire Prometheus directly into the heart of the pulsar itself. Captain Li Jin's finger presses down on the activation switch, and immediately the Prometheus begins to change. The ship's remaining quantum drives surge to life one final time, but instead of creating a fold space jump to escape, they're doing something far more dangerous. The vessel starts to phase shift directly toward the pulsar's core, diving into the heart of one of the universe's most violent objects. Chief Engineer Choi Min watches her instruments with grim fascination as the ship begins its final journey. The pulsar is a neutron star, the collapsed core of a massive sun, spinning hundreds of times per second and generating magnetic fields trillions of times stronger than Earth's. Under normal circumstances, approaching this close would mean instant death. But the Prometheus isn't following normal rules anymore. As the ship phases into the pulsar's core, something unprecedented begins to happen. The quantum drives that have powered humanity's impossible weapons start to interact with the neutron star's magnetic field. The exotic energy that has been slowly killing the crew for weeks suddenly finds a new outlet, the unimaginable power contained within the spinning stellar remnant. The hegemony fleet watches in horror as the Prometheus disappears into the pulsar, but their instruments immediately start screaming warnings about massive energy buildups. The neutron star's rotation begins to wobble, its perfectly stable magnetic field starting to fluctuate in ways that shouldn't be possible. Deep within the star's core, the ship's quantum drives are tearing apart the very structure that holds the pulsar together. Supreme Commander Thaxvan realizes what's happening just seconds before it's too late. All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace, maximum distance, now. But 3,000 warships can't coordinate an emergency retreat in just a few seconds. Most of them are still powering up their jump drives when the pulsar explodes. It's not a normal stellar explosion. The quantum contamination from the Prometheus has created something far worse, a blast that tears through multiple dimensions simultaneously. The shockwave doesn't just travel through normal space. It rips holes in reality itself, creating a cascade of destruction that spreads far beyond what any conventional weapon could achieve. The first ring of hegemony ships simply ceases to exist. They don't explode or burn. They're erased from reality as the dimensional shockwave passes through them. The second ring has just enough time to register what's happening before they're crushed by gravitational forces that belong inside black holes, not in open space. Ships that manage to jump to hyperspace discover that even that refuge isn't safe. The explosion follows them into subspace, creating tears in the fabric of faster-than-light travel itself. Vessels that thought they had escaped find themselves thrown back into normal space, their hulls twisted into impossible shapes by forces that exist outside conventional physics. The destruction doesn't stop at the hegemony fleet. The shockwave continues outward, carrying the quantum signature of human technology across multiple star systems. Monitoring stations throughout the sector detect the blast and realize with growing terror that this isn't just the death of one ship. It's a demonstration of what happens when humanity's ghost ships are pushed beyond their limits. On distant worlds, alien leaders watch the sensor readings with pale faces and trembling hands. The explosion is visible across dozens of light years, a brilliant flare that outshines entire star clusters. But more terrifying than the raw power is the message it sends. Humanity has just proven that their dying ships can take entire fleets with them, and there are still 12 more Prometheus-class vessels hidden somewhere in fold space. The star that became a weapon has rewritten the rules of warfare forever. The news of the pulsar explosion spreads across the galaxy like wildfire, and with it comes a silence that no one has ever experienced before. For the first time in centuries, the great powers of the galaxy are truly afraid. The hegemony's mighty fleet, 3,000 of their finest warships, has been erased from existence by a single dying human vessel. The implications are staggering and impossible to ignore. Within days, emergency sessions are being called in every major government. The Zephyrian Empire, which has been humanity's enemy for over a decade, is the first to send diplomatic envoys to Earth. Their proud warrior culture, built on the idea that strength determines survival, suddenly finds itself facing an opponent that redefines what strength means. Ambassador Veltharok arrives on Earth with a simple message: "We wish to discuss terms." The Galactic Council, which had voted to support the war against humanity just months earlier, now scrambles to distance itself from that decision. Representatives who had called humans primitive and expendable are now drafting formal apologies and offering trade agreements. The speed of their reversal would be laughable if it weren't so desperately urgent. Everyone knows that 12 more Prometheus-class ships are still out there, hidden in dimensions that conventional sensors can't detect. On Earth, the human leadership handles these sudden peace overtures with quiet dignity. There are no victory parades, no triumphant speeches, no demands for reparations. Instead, President Kim Do-hyun signs treaty after treaty with simple, identical terms: mutual non-aggression, respect for human territory, and the establishment of neutral zones around all human colonies. The humans ask for nothing more than to be left alone, but everyone understands the unspoken threat behind that request. New Haven, the colony world where this all began, becomes something unique in galactic history. The planet is declared a memorial world, dedicated to the memory of Captain Lee Jin and the crew of the Prometheus. Visitors from across the galaxy come to see the monument built in their honor, a simple black stone wall with the names of everyone who died aboard humanity's ghost ships. The inscription reads, "They gave their lives so others could live in peace." Commander Park Hyun, who survived the battle that started everything, becomes the guardian of New Haven's memorial. He often stands before the wall at sunset, reading the names of friends and colleagues who chose to die rather than let their species be exterminated. Tourists from alien worlds sometimes ask him about the battle, wanting to understand how 12 human ships managed to defeat such overwhelming odds. His answer is always the same. They weren't fighting for glory or conquest, they were fighting for home. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the new peace is how normal everything appears on the surface. Human merchant ships trade peacefully with alien colonies. Human diplomats attend galactic conferences and participate in interspecies cultural exchanges. Human scientists collaborate on research projects with their alien counterparts. To a casual observer, humanity looks like just another member of the galactic community. Yet every military commander in the galaxy knows the truth. Somewhere in the quantum shadows between dimensions, 12 ghost ships patrol the void. Their crews are volunteers who have already accepted death, armed with weapons that exist beyond the boundaries of conventional warfare. They watch and wait, ready to emerge if anyone threatens human life. The balance of power in the galaxy has shifted permanently. Humanity has proven that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from the desire to conquer, but from the willingness to sacrifice everything to protect what you love.